Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Mariam Amed. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Menza. We're a data analytics platform for consumer brands. What that means is we work with brands that you probably know of, food and beverage companies, fashion, beauty, retailers, consumer tech companies. And basically, what we're trying to tackle is a lot of these companies have often very fragmented data. So, across many different data sources, that's often unusable as well because it's unstructured. And so, what we try to do is centralize that data, make it structured, clean it up, and then we enable specifically non-technical users, so sales, marketing, operations folks, to be able to make data-driven decisions. So create dashboards, reports, and workflow automations.
Okay, I have a bundle of different questions.
Yeah.
Why? Why does someone need to use this? Like, how did you stumble into this use case?
Yeah, for sure. Let me, yeah, start with that and then kind of tell you what that means for a lot of our customers. So it actually came from a very personal experience, both for myself and my co-founder. So I worked at an investment bank and I'm a technical person. I study computer science. My background is in AI research. And so I was working in a non-technical role at the investment bank on the trading floor. And I found that we were often going into client conversations without being informed on how their trades were performing, what they had on the book currently, which is kind of crazy to think
Yeah.
about. Um, Especially for kind of a world-class investment bank, but a lot of it is because that data would sit with the engineering team and it wasn't readily accessible. And so as a technical person, I actually built out a lot of tooling around that to kind of inform our salespeople or us, because I was going into client conversations. It really started with that, just our team. And so I was like, okay, how could this be a little bit more scalable and work for other people? And then my co-founder, he was the founder of a consumer tech company. That's how we met. And he actually had that kind of firsthand as the founder, where he wanted to make better data driven decisions. And he often felt that if he was using data, he was making better decisions strategically, but it was quite inaccessible because of kind of the data fragmentation, a lot of the data being unusable, but also he didn't necessarily have a data background. But what we both had is that we'd been working with LLMs for a very long time, working on that consumer tech company. And we were like, okay, here's a great opportunity. So we ended up kind of first building out an MVP of the product and testing it out with all different kinds of customers. We were very horizontal for the beginning. And then that's when we really found kind of this consumer brand CPG use case, because we found these companies in particular are founded by very passionate people, who are creating a product that they want for themselves. So they don't necessarily come from a technical background. But also, especially when you're collecting consumer data, it can be so incredibly valuable to know how your customers are thinking, how they're reacting to your product. But a lot of the companies we talked to initially, they were kind of building in the dark, which is kind of crazy from a tech
Really?
perspective. Yeah, so because we're tech founders, right? And we've worked in tech. And so we're like, oh, yeah, of course you need to be looking at your customers and doing user interviews. But for a lot of the people we were working with, they come from more traditional backgrounds, in the luxury industry, for example, where you're not necessarily using technology, kind of at all. Like we work with some brands that were like, very limited. They're looking at their finances and maybe they'll use technology in that sense. But
It's
even
just
looking
Excel
at customer reviews,
spreadsheets and like there's no equations
Excel
and
it's incredibly manual. So they're literally going there and looking at their customer
it's like
reviews, and obviously you can only look
hyphen
at
minus equals.
exactly. And I worked in an investment bank, so I knew how painful that can be. And so I was like, okay, how can we build a solution so you don't need to do this on Excel anymore? And I think people responded very well to that. And yeah, that's kind of where we got. But what's great is for our customers, it's not just about, understanding their company, understanding their product, but it's identifying potential revenue opportunities that they're missing out on. Because in that data, there's so much value that they're just not aware of. You don't know what you don't know. And
Mhm.
that's the thing we're solving for, is if we can use AI to actually go through your data and act like, we like to say our product is like having someone who works for you who has way too much time on their hands, and they can just like go through every piece of data that you have and try to find the trends, find the interesting things, look for the new opportunities that you just don't have time to do while you're focusing on core product.
So basically, what you've done is you built a very high agency intern with like a super duper intelligence,
Yeah.
super intelligence behind it to allow
Yeah.
the business owner and the brand to actually go and do the work they need to do, and then they can come in type of couple prompts, and they get out this output of like, I understand the business. These are the areas that you need to focus on.
That's exactly. I love the way you're describing that. And like in our case, we just hope this intern gets a return offer, which generally it does, which is great. But yeah, it's having someone who's super intelligent just go through and just tell you what you need to know. Because when you're running a business, you don't have time to sit there and explore. And if you don't necessarily come from a data background, you don't know what questions to be asking. And so we wanted to fill that gap.
I thought we were a heavily research show over adventures, and I completely missed the fact that you have a background in AI. I'd love to double click on
Yeah,
that for a
yeah,
moment.
for sure,
Like
for sure.
when it comes to building a product today, everyone there's this narrative around everything's just a wrapper of a wrapper, right? I think Perplexity CEO has kind of coined that phrase. Google is just a wrapper of NVIDIA chips, and search is just a wrapper of the Google database, etc. But at its core, the product has to provide value, right? When it comes to what you're building over at Menza and leveraging AI in that process, do the customers see that value straight away, or do you have to kind of help them understand what it is that this does? And it's not just ChatGPT for your Excel.
Yeah. So actually, something that I will try to be very intentional about is when we're selling, not leading with AI, because I think it's very tempting to do that, especially given the current market and just the world that we're living in. AI is a very buzzy term, and I didn't want to be in a position where people were using us just because we're an AI tool. Because
Mhm.
when we first started in 2023, I think the big mandate, especially for enterprises, was use AI, right? And we were getting into these conversations where people were very excited about the prospect of using AI, but they weren't actually focusing on what our tool did. And
Mhm.
so I kind of changed it a little bit in terms of how we approached it in our go to market. Obviously, it still helps if we like throw AI in there. That's like an easy win. But I wanted to challenge us to sell the product on what it does functionally. And if I'm describing what it does functionally, that is AI. People usually come to the conclusion of like, oh, so it's AI that does this, and we're like, yes. But we're not going to say we're like an AI company necessarily going for like into the conversation. We're like, we built this tool, it's data analytics for your brand, but it's automating all of that intelligence for you. So you can be completely hands off. And even if you don't know how to code, you are acting like you are like a super powered CEO or marketer or salesperson. And I think that's been pretty critical for us because then we want them to see the value of the impact of the AI rather than the value of the AI as a concept, if that makes sense. Especially as an earlier stage company,
Makes complete
we wanted,
sense.
yeah, we wanted to learn from like what about the product is helpful, not okay, just get sales, because that's also a strategy and that makes a lot of sense. But we were in the position where we are like, okay, let's really take our time with this.
Feels like quite a thoughtful approach to distributing the product and really figuring out like where it sits in terms of product market fit. I would love to ask about design. I think that products today have always, like anything with AI that we use today is always like chatbot first. Do you feel like that is the right way to move forward into the future as we engage with some sort of chatbot? Or do you feel like the dashboard, which is what you guys do best, is still really important in terms of understanding what it is you're looking at?
Yeah, I feel like you've been sitting in our calls that our team has because we have this debate a lot. Because I'm personally someone who does not like chat and does
I'm a
not like,
big fan of chat for certain things, but I think that
yeah,
with numbers, chat is not the right way to move
yeah,
forward.
but a
Dashboards
lot
still
of
play a
people love
point.
chat. It's just my personal thing of I would rather just be able to drag and drop and have everything done for me. We offer both. I would say like our very basic MVP when we first started out because we wanted to launch as soon as possible. So we launched basically a month after starting the company. Like
How far in from GPT-3 was that? Or 3.5? If it's
so
2023, so almost 6 months, give or
2023,
take.
yeah, maybe about 6 months. And
So
so yeah,
early.
we created a ChatGPT wrapper essentially. But we were like, we want that live as soon as possible. And we want people to be able to. So at that time, it was upload an Excel or a CSV and start asking questions and talk to your Excel or your CSV. And for us, we really wanted to understand what kind of questions are people asking, what pain points are they having. And that's where we got one of our first insights, which was people didn't know what to ask. And we were like, okay, great, that's a really good insight. But obviously, we wanted to launch quickly. We could not build what we've built currently. That's kind of still has chat, but we have other ways of interacting with AI that isn't just chat. We would not have gone there if it wasn't for that initial chat functionality. And I do think there's a bit of a people are used to chat, right? You don't want to reinvent the wheel necessarily. And the way that we have gotten used to interacting with AI thus far especially because of ChatGPT, is through chat. And I think people really like the idea of having that back and forth. That's something a lot of our customers really loved. We call it more of like an exploration, where they're not as much like some of our customers are like, just create the report for me, done. I just want to see it, and I don't want to interact on the platform at all. So they get like the report sent to them. They have a couple of automations in the background. Some people are like, I want to spend an hour or two, and that's always fun to hear about because some people are like, I lose time, like I just get lost in it going through the chat. And within our chat, we try to have, suggestions and things that make it a little more helpful so you're not just like thinking off the top of your head. It helps the conversation flow. Um, so that's kind of like, so we still see value in it. Personally, I just see a world where everything's hands off. I like that would be my grand vision and dream, especially for a product like Menza, because we want it to be like an AI employee, right? That intern we were talking about, maybe the intern gets a little bit of a promotion and you don't need to tell them what to do anymore, and they can actually like go behind the scenes and do everything for you. And you end the day and you're like, oh, I basically like 10x the work that I've done today. And this is not like 10x engineer, to be clear, but like it's like anyone can be a 10x whatever they're doing because you have this kind of automation happening in the background or this AI doing the work. Um, that's all data informed essentially. So you're doing like the best form of work as well. Well, you're focusing on maybe like your interpersonal relationships with your customers, or you're actually like building core product. You're doing the things that you're actually passionate about, and you're not worrying about monitoring your CAC, for example, and acting on that, or like creating new deals. That's something that our customers will automate is like, okay, what products are selling well? What's products sell well together? Create an email campaign for me and send that out, right? That's what I love. And I find I'm really passionate about is getting more stuff like that, where it's like you're having a marketer work for you, but you're a marketer as well. So you're like doing it, you're 10x yourself, which is quite cool.
Orchestration almost is how I
Yeah.
begin to understand it, right? It's like
Yeah.
we should start becoming very high agency ourselves and understand that the role is now not to do the work. The role is now to make sure the work is done in the right way by
Correct.
managing these agents together to help produce what is necessary for the company to move forward, whether that's in marketing assets, whether that's in finance materials, etc., or deeply understanding, like deep diving into the company. Like I think about the way that you were explaining it, that how often do people sit there and deep dive into their finances, like deep dive into their CAC, for example, and sit there and understand the nitty gritties for hours on end themselves as someone that's non-technical. Like imagine trying to build that. It's mind blowing. Build those models yourself. And to be
Yeah.
able to do that super fast today, I think just gives everyone the opportunity to win in their own little ways.
Yeah, I really like that. Everyone can kind of win in this situation, and that's what we love. We love when our customers come to us and they've used it in a way that we were like, we had no idea you could use our product like that. They come in with some really interesting use cases because we work with some brilliant companies doing awesome things in the consumer space, and I just find everything they do super fascinating. A lot of our companies separately, I love using their products, and that's just a coincidence. I promise that's not part of my go to market that I actively target companies whose products I
Hey,
love.
it could be a great
Um,
go-to-market strategy today. Everyone wants that human
yeah,
relationship. We find ourselves in a situation where it's like, hey, I love the product. Do you mind if we like have a conversation about potentially using ours?
yeah, well, it's so funny. I've had customers who've like it's been inbound, right? So they've heard about us and they come and they're like, "Oh, we're not sure if you're familiar with our product," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm familiar with your product,"
I'd
which
know
is
your
great.
game.
Yeah, it's great because then I'm like, okay, I know I can already in the demo or whatever, you know, think of specific use cases that would be relevant to them. I mean, generally, like to research the companies I'm meeting with before I meet with them. But if I'm like someone there's some companies we're working with, I've been using their products for years. And it's so cool. And like to get kind of an inside look into how we can help them is awesome.
Talk to me about like the way that you're building product today. Is it very small teams, or have you tried to expand quite fast and find yourself find a footing in the market and sort of win, land and grab? Or have you been quite thoughtful about the way that you've engaged with clients, engaged with customers, and like kept this long ongoing relationship? Which is it? Which is working today?
Yeah, so for us, we wanted to keep it as small for as long as possible. And part of it is so our team is quite small and we're all engineers, so we can all build product. But I would also say everyone has like the best personality ever and really gets along with customers. Like even people who are pure engineers in title, so not founders. So our founding engineer, for example, is awesome, and customers love him. And because everyone is in every chat with every customer, I try to get our customers to meet our engineers as much as possible, because I think that relationship is so important. And we want people to be comfortable telling us, hey, this is a problem, or can you build this, or oh, I have this idea. And I think there's something so nice if they know the person who can build that and they feel like, okay, there's this access. And that's one thing. The other thing is we are an AI company through and through. We're so bullish AI that we're like, we're going to employ
Mhm.
AI in everything that we do. And so I'm so excited to learn about new AI products, because I'm like, how can we apply that to our company so we can, keep our team as small as possible, have everyone working at full capacity, make the most of their role. My role, for example, so I'm CTO, but in practice, I spend so much time with customers. So how can I like automate kind of the technical side, or automate a lot of the customer interactions that I'm having, making sure I'm on top of the emails I'm sending, because I'm not necessarily a the commercial person. I don't have that background. I have the technical background. And so what tools are out there? And I feel like this is the best time to be building a company. This I genuinely am so bullish on the idea of like a one person unicorn. I am so excited to see someone do that, because I think it is becoming increasingly more and more possible. I mean, I can this is like a whole you've hit a whole thing that I have a very strong view on.
No, I love
Uh,
it. I think that, look, today more than ever, we're going to be in this position where we are employing it. I'd love to touch on for a moment. Are you actively employing AI, like an AI agent inside the company that does work?
so we use Menza. That's the
You use
biggest thing.
Menza inside of, you sip your own champagne. Incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, because we were like, if we can't use our own product, then it's not worth selling. And Menza has been huge for us, because it's funny, our product is meant for non-technical users.
And
But
imagine what happens when you give it to technical people.
we're technical people, but we don't have a non-technical background, I guess. There are a lot of soft skills that we don't have, that are so critical to running a tech company. And so Mensa has been really great for that. I use it for marketing, I use it for sales, we use it for strategy. There's some, I mean, when we're trying out new products, we're like the ultimate beta testers, because we test on ourselves first. And I was just on the call with the guys this morning, um, and we were talking about, we're doing very user specific context work. And it's kind of fun to see context on ourselves in a way that, our users don't won't necessarily be exposed to. But um, for example, our founding engineer, we were looking at linear as a data source,
Mhm.
and it knew exactly what he was working on, like to a T, and what his problems were, and like gave suggestions for how he can kind of be more effective today. And we were like, whoa, this is so cool. And we're not, I would say we are not also like the best at maintaining our linear, or like a lot of the tools, so like the project management tools. Some of our customers are like immaculate users of these tools. And so we're so excited for them to use it, because we're like, if you've gotten that much context from us not using these tools as well as we should be.
Imagine what happens if it does, if it works for them.
Yeah. So we're very, it's so fun. That's a bit of a sneak preview, by the way, for anyone on the live
Oh,
stream.
we're breaking news today. I love it. I absolutely love
Yeah.
it. Talk to me about the
Um,
unicorn. I mean, the one person unicorn thesis, like sort of emerged out of GPT 3.5, right? Is when people started seeing the application of LLMs. You had some of these very viral products like Cal.com, for example,
yeah.
like ripping through users and monetizing quite quickly, at least. When you think about the product that it has to be, do you think it's anything, or do you think that that one person unicorn is going to solve not a soft problem but a hard problem?
That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I think it could be, it just depends on who gets there first. I love the cal.com example. I mean, there's so many great products out there that have very small teams that are just like doing crazy numbers in terms of revenue, whether it's something relatively simple that people like they're selling to consumers. I think even building enterprise products are possible, with small teams. I mean, that's the position we're in. I think it'll probably take a little bit longer. Having, worked on a consumer tech company with my now co-founder, I worked for him on his consumer tech company. We were able to keep the team really small and generate significant revenue, and this is pre-AI. So, in the form that it is today, because that company was one of the first commercial large language model companies. Um, it was called Shortly, and that was a consumer company. And to see how quickly people took onto it and how viral it went, that's very different from like an enterprise sales cycle. So I guess that kind of answers your question to a certain extent. I think a consumer product is going to be, could go
The one
viral. But
person unicorn. But because you
yeah,
have to build in those viral features, like the things that people love, and then fix like the video off the back of it and like get viral
yeah.
attention and then just build that into the feedback loop, right?
Even with the last company, there wasn't that much like active marketing. It was purely word of mouth. That's the thing. You never know what's going to go viral. It's so fun. We love comparing building a consumer tech company to building, a B2B
Do you have a
tech company.
preference? Like consumer's really sexy, right? Like it's a really
Yeah.
sexy thing to do. There's a lot of ego involved in it. It's like, yeah, I get to build this thing that people are going to use. And then B2B is considered to be more boring because like it's business to business. But actually in a lot of respects, it's the more fun one because you know exactly who the person is.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know what? I think we've landed in the perfect best of both worlds. We're a B2B company that sells to consumer companies. So we still get that flavor and taste of like the sexy products and but we're still, we have a lot more of the predictability and kind of like very clear problem we're solving that you have in B2B. So, I mean, yeah, you described it perfectly. It's kind of the sexy versus the boring. I think it's fun to tell people if you have a consumer tech company what you're working on because they can relate to it. Now, when people ask what I'm working on, they actually do get excited when I get into more of the consumer stuff and like the kinds of customers we work on and the use cases. But I've been in rooms with other founders and I feel like I'm the lamest person as like the B2B SaaS company. And they're all doing like really cool consumer products that everyone wants to try out. And I'm like, okay, well, you can't really try our product out, but I can tell you some cool case studies if you want. I have a one pager.
I love it. I feel in the same boat. You know, the UK ecosystem and the founder network is everyone comes into the conversation and goes, "Are you a founder?" I sort of have to sit with that for a moment and think to myself, like, "Am I? I'm building a media company. I'm building a media network. So does that make me one? Like the things I do aren't as cool as the things you do potentially, in
Yeah.
when it comes to technology." So I completely empathize with that. When
Yeah.
it
No, it's,
comes when it comes to the US versus the UK, though, like, talk to me. I hear the American accent. Do you
yeah.
feel that there is a dynamic difference between the two ecosystems, or do you feel like actually London's a place to play and Europe's a place to play as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. You caught me at the perfect time. I actually just flew in this morning from New York City. Um,
How the
I think I'm
vibes?
in New York. Great. For me personally, I don't know why I take red eyes. I can never sleep. So, this is a good time to get me on a live stream. I'm running on like, 2 hours of sleep max at the moment. But New York was great, and So I've lived as a founder in SF, New York, and London now for a significant amount of time. Probably SF the least, but that was about 6 months. And then now I'm splitting my time between New York and London. I think they're all great places to build a business. I think London in particular is one of the best places to be building in Europe. You have such great access and global access. There are so many amazing founders. There are also some great places like Amsterdam and Sweden as well that are really doing a great job. But from my experience, London's been great. But I would say it's quite different. I think SF is obviously just its own thing. That city is dedicated to startups and to founders and to tech. Uh, you walk into SF and it feels like you're walking through the internet. You see all of the big tech companies, right, in their headquarters, and you feel your Uber driver has a startup. You go into the grocery store and like you're surrounded by investors and founders, and the person who's ringing you up is an investor and wants to give you an angel check. It's that kind of vibe. You have the driverless cars. So I think it's just a way more mature startup ecosystem, and you can tangibly feel that. I think especially from the investor perspective as well, which is like a whole other conversation. But as a builder, it is quite energizing to be around so many people. I think the ambitions are quite different as well. Obviously, the market is a lot bigger in the US for a lot of companies, not all, but for a lot of the startups that I talk to. And so they're like, I want to build $1 billion business. We're building a unicorn. Um, And that's just so energizing. New York City is also super energizing. It's a very work focused place. I'm originally from New York City, and that's one of the things I love about it. It's not a 9 to 5 mentality, it's a 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. mentality. And you really feel that, and you feel that impact on startups. And a lot of startups are now moving to New York City from SF just because it's a slightly more livable place. And there is just this energy and kind of the access you get as well. You can very easily come to London, for example. But then London is also you have so much access to the rest of the world, right? The Middle East, Africa, the rest of Europe, Asia. And so I see the benefits of all different places. I have a lot of hope for London. I think there are certain things about certain cultural attitudes as well that play into the differences. I think in the US, people tend to be a little bit more open and they love talking to strangers and kind of making those connections. Some people see it as very superficial, but I personally think it's been very helpful to have people really embrace you. So I will go into, when I was in New York, I'd go to a co working space. And the number of leads that I would get just from people asking, "Oh, what do you do?" And then they're like, "Oh, I know this person, this person, this person." I think it's a very American attitude, and I'd love to see more of that in London. And I think there's so much potential for it. It's just being very intentional about creating those spaces where startups can kind of get together, because there's so many other industries that are thriving and doing so well here, which is another advantage of London, especially if you're selling to those industries. But I think having a more centralized space would be great. I know there's like London Founders House, and there's the startup hub and like the AI hub. So there are places that are growing traction. It's just doing more of that and leaning into that, doing more events. I think one thing is like in New York and SF as well, there are events constantly.
I've heard
Oh,
this metric from a couple of people. It's like, if you think London's great, go and look on Luma and then go and look at the events in New York and San Francisco. New York, NYC, is like 10x what London is. And then San Fran apparently is like 1,000x what London is. It's just ripping with events, people showing up to things and just having conversations to begin with, like what build in public, like go and work together, etc. Parties. It feels like the place to be right now if you want to go
yeah.
and build a company. But I kind of like yes and no. Go out there, get the capital, come back, build here.
I think that's also a really good point. And that's essentially what we've done is we started our company in the US. We're incorporated in the US. We raised money in the US, but we're operating in the UK. And we still sell globally. So that's why I spend so much time in the US, because I love having that in-person interaction. It's not necessary. We live in a post-COVID world. Everyone can do Zoom calls. Everyone knows that kind of language. I think it's very important to have some sort of in-person at some point, but you don't need to do it every day. You don't need to do it every week, right? So you might as well operate here where costs are relatively low, and then use your US money to pay for that. Raise a lot more money. Investors there tend to have bigger wallets, and then sell there as well, where people tend to have bigger budgets for tools. And yeah, I think there's a great best of both worlds. This is becoming a theme, just trying to optimize, and it's a bit of like a trade that you're playing, where you're
You're
like,
gonna
how can
have
I
Menza doing your flight soon.
yeah. Oh, that's not a bad idea. Gosh, I never thought of that. That is a great idea. Because I
Ah,
have,
we were out here, we're just giving features away for free.
yeah, sorry. I'm absolutely stealing that. I can give you credit, I guess, but I'm going to implement that as soon as we're off this call,
Sky
because I have,
Scanner, it can go and build it, come back, give you optimized
yeah.
pricing, hotels. It's like just an API, and it's at the end of the day.
Yeah, that is, I mean, yeah, because we have over 650 integrations. Why not have
Why not just
650?
add another tool?
Yeah, just like create a whole new product. Yeah.
Mariam, before we wrap, I've got to touch on one last thing. Forbes 30 under 30. Congratulations. How does it feel?
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, it's really great. I'm so blessed and lucky to have been honored with Forbes 30 under 30. It was honestly a surprise. It was
Can
really
I
great. And
ask? There is this
yeah,
ongoing rumor that you have to pay for it yourself. You submit the
no,
application yourself. Is
no,
that true?
no. There is one part that actually is true to a certain extent. So when you've been nominated, so you got nominated, you can either nominate yourself or someone else can nominate you. I don't know if they email everyone or like it's a short list or something. They send you a message saying you've been nominated, can you fill out this form? And I don't know if I should be sharing this, but anyways, we're on a live stream, it's fine. And they ask you for very basic information. Like they're like, can you upload an ID to verify your age? Which I think is a very valid thing to ask for, because they want to make sure you're actually under
Of
30.
course.
And then they ask you if you have a criminal history, which I find kind of hilarious. And then they ask you, might as well get ahead of it. And then they ask you if there's anyone who can endorse your application, which I was at such a loss. I was like, I don't even know. I think I gave like my old boss, which is probably not relevant to my current, like we got it, which is our current venture. But anyways, and then I did find out from other people, they told me, hey, Forbes reached out to me. So I knew we were nominated and I knew there was like a potential, but I didn't know when it was going to come out. I didn't know if we were going to get it. And then I was in the US at the time. And then it was like, I think the list came out at 6 a.m. in the UK. So it
Hmm.
was 1 a.m. in the US. So I woke up at like 5 or 6 a.m. and I checked my phone, as one does. And I had a text from a friend in Germany and he was like, congratulations. And I was like, what is this? What do you mean? And I look and he'd sent me the link. I was like, did you know that you're the first person to tell me about this? This is someone I haven't spoken to in months, by the way. And I'm like, of all the people, and I'm like laying there, and I'm actually at my grandmother's house. I was visiting her at the time. And it was actually perfect because it was so nice to be surrounded by family and to celebrate with them. But yeah, I was not expecting it. I absolutely did not pay for it. And yeah, but I did have an idea it was going to potentially come, but I
Thank you
didn't
for
know.
setting the record straight. I've been wanting to know for a while. Like you hear
Yeah,
the Reddit threads just like chiming in on like, no, this person paid for it.
yeah,
And you kind of get when you start learning about those circles, you sort of never know really what happens because that list is just so large. And
yeah,
sometimes you feel like, well, why are certain people on it? But respect
yeah.
where respect is due and flowers where flowers are due.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I will let you crack on and keep shipping, or maybe get some sleep after that red eye. Thanks so much for coming on the
Yeah. Well,
show. We've
no,
got to
you
do it
gave me a
again.
new product idea. How am I supposed to sleep? I need to go build. This is great.
We
I'll
love
have
it.
added some to my to-do list, if anything. But no, it was such a pleasure speaking with you. And yeah, I'd love to catch up again soon.
Sounds fun. We've got to rip through the whole team. I need the founding engineer, co-founder, C8,
Oh,
CEO. Let's do
absolutely.
it.
They're all awesome and all great, great people. So, we don't have anyone but great people on our team.
Thanks so
Anyways,
much, Marianne. See you soon.